Good evening, friend. You're tuned in late tonight. You probably shouldn't be. Most people are asleep, tucked away from the dark that seeps through the world after midnight. But not you. You stayed. And maybe that's good, because there's something I need to tell you. It's not a story I share often. In fact, I swore I never would. But every time I close my eyes, I still hear the wind through the hollow houses and the whispers behind the walls. Maybe if I tell it, it'll stop. It started 2 years ago. I was a field engineer sent out to document power lines in the northern region, a cluster of villages no one had lived in for decades. Most were wiped out after a landslide in the 1980s. My job was simple: map out what was left before the government officially closed the zone. The drive there was endless, mountains swallowing the horizon, the radio crackling with static. No service. No people. Just the hum of the engine and the sound of gravel under my tires. I reached the first sign of life, or what was left of it, around dusk. A broken board with the name barely readable. Carsel Village. The air felt heavy the moment I crossed that sign. There's something about old, forgotten places, like the land itself remembers what happened, and it wants you to leave. The houses were sunken into the earth, roofs caved in, doors missing. Everything smelled of rot and rain-soaked wood. The only thing standing untouched was the church at the far end of the main street, tall, silent, its cross still gleaming faintly in the dying light. I parked near an old-school building and began setting up my drone. The ground was soft, muddy. Every step I took made a wet, sucking noise. When I powered on the drone, my laptop screen flickered. Static. Then, for a second, I saw a figure move between the houses. I froze. Rewound the footage. Nothing. Just an empty street. I laughed it off. Maybe a shadow. Maybe my nerves. But as the drone climbed higher, I noticed something else. Every house in the village had its front door open, all of them, like someone left in a hurry. As night fell, I decided to stay in my van. It wasn't safe to drive the cliffs in darkness. I set up camp, locked the doors, and turned on the heater. Around midnight, I woke up. No sound. No wind. Just silence. Then I heard something faint, like a child humming. I turned off the heater to listen. The sound was coming from outside, somewhere near the school building. My first thought was impossible. There were no families here. No one for miles. I opened the van door slowly, flashlight in hand. The beam cut through the fog, and I saw a swing moving gently in the playground. Back and forth. Back and forth. The humming stopped. Then something whispered right behind me. You shouldn't be here. I spun around, heart hammering. No one. Just mist curling through the air, my breath fogging in front of me. I backed into the van and slammed the door. Locked it twice. My hands were shaking. I told myself it was the wind, the echo, my mind playing tricks. But that voice, it wasn't the kind that echoes. It was close. I didn't sleep. I just sat there until the first light crept over the hills. When the fog lifted, the village looked different. Every door that had been open last night was now closed. I checked my drone footage again, scrolling through frames. At 2:37 a.m., the drone, which I had powered off, recorded 1 second of video. It shouldn't have. That one frame showed someone standing next to my van, face blurred by motion, head tilted slightly, watching me through the window. I wanted to leave. Every part of me screamed too. But the mountain road had partially collapsed from rain. So I stayed another night, Just one more, I told myself. I'd finish my documentation, then go. I walked through the village that day, camera in hand. The silence was suffocating. Every step echoed off the hollow houses. Inside one of them, I found a single chair, upright in the middle of the room, clean, untouched by dust. Another house had dozens of children's shoes scattered near the doorway. Each pair was facing the exit as if the kids had lined up to leave and never came back. At the far edge of the village, behind the church, I found a stone well covered by rusted metal bars. There was something written on the stones around it, scratched by hand. Do not answer the voice. I recorded everything. Photos, notes, coordinates. But every picture on my camera roll came out blurred except one, the well. Perfectly sharp. That night, the radio in my van turned itself on. No power. No key in the ignition. A faint static hiss filled the air, then a voice crackled through. Hello, hello? Can you hear me? I froze. It was a woman's voice. Calm. Familiar. It sounded like my mother, but she'd been dead for years. My throat went dry. Who is this? The voice continued, soft, pleading, you're not alone out there. Please, come to the church. I can help you. The signal cut off. Silence. I told myself it couldn't be real. But then the church bell rang slow, deliberate, 3 times. I hadn't seen any bell rope. No one could have rung it. I stepped outside, flashlight trembling in my hand, and looked toward the church on the hill. The front door was wide open. The hill felt steeper than it looked. Every few steps, I had to stop and catch my breath. The fog had thickened again, almost liquid, pressing against my face. By the time I reached the church, the air smelled of iron and something sweet, like decay hidden under flowers. The wooden door creaked as I pushed it open. Inside, pews lay overturned. Candles had melted into long, waxy rivers on the floor. And in the center aisle stood a radio, old and dust-covered, its antenna bent like a broken limb. It was still on. Static whispering faintly. I approached slowly. Mom? I whispered. The static shifted, and the same voice returned. Don't let them touch you. Then a loud crack echoed through the church. The door behind me slammed shut. I ran to the door, pulling, shoving, it wouldn't budge. The temperature dropped suddenly, my breath turning to mist again. Something was moving in the shadows behind the altar. I aimed my flashlight. There was a shape, tall and thin, its skin gray and stretched too tight. It didn't move like a person. It tilted its head as if studying me. Then it whispered in the same voice as before, "Come closer." I stumbled backward, my light flickering. The radio screamed not words, just high-pitched static, and the creature flinched. I grabbed the radio and hurled it at the window. Glass shattered. I didn't think. I jumped through. I landed hard outside, cut my arm on the shards, and rolled down the hill, gasping. The church bell rang again, 3 slow tolls. Back in the van, I packed everything. Drone. Laptop. Notes. I didn't care about the road collapse anymore. I was leaving, even if I had to drive through the mud. The engine roared to life, tires skidding as I tore down the narrow track. The fog chased me like a living thing, swallowing the rearview mirror. I drove for hours. Or maybe minutes. Time didn't make sense anymore. Then headlights. Another vehicle parked sideways across the road. Its doors open. Engine running. I stopped, honked, nothing. I stepped out slowly. The driver's seat was empty, but the radio inside that car was playing the same voice. "You can't leave yet." I stumbled back from the car, heart pounding. The voice from its radio kept repeating, softer each time, like it was losing power. "You can't leave yet, not yet." Then the sound warped, turning into a low, distorted hum. The headlights flickered, and for a second, I saw something move behind the car. A figure. Watching me. I jumped back into my van and floored it. The other car's lights died completely as I sped past. The road twisted endlessly, fog thickening again. Every few seconds, the radio in my van would flicker, short bursts of static, like breathing. Then words began to form again. "Turn back. You forgot one of them." I ripped the radio's power cord out. Silence returned, heavy and absolute. But I could still hear the faint echo of the voice inside my head. Hours passed, or maybe not. The mountains all looked the same. My GPS showed a blank screen. Just a blinking dot. Eventually, the van sputtered and died. Out of fuel. I sat there, gripping the wheel, trying to breathe. Outside, faint lights in the distance. Flickering. Like lanterns. Maybe another village. Maybe people. I grabbed my flashlight and camera and started walking. The road narrowed into dirt, then gravel, then nothing but wet grass. The lights ahead grew brighter, warm, almost welcoming. But when I reached them, they weren't lanterns. They were eyes. Dozens of them, glowing faintly from the fog. Watching. Waiting. I froze. My flashlight flickered once and went dark. For a long moment, there was no sound, just my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. Then footsteps. Soft, deliberate, circling me. I spun around, shouting, "Who's there?" The fog shifted, and something brushed past my arm. Cold. Wet. I ran blindly, stumbling over rocks and roots. The whispers followed. Dozens of them overlapping. "Stay. Listen. Join us." When I finally stopped running, I realized I was standing back at the church gate. The same path. The same sign. Somehow, I had gone in a circle. And on the sign that once said Castle Village, a new message had been carved. Fresh, like it was waiting for me. "Welcome back." My throat went dry. The letters were carved deep, fresh, with splinters still hanging from the grooves. Someone had done this recently. I backed away slowly, scanning the trees. Nothing moved, but the air felt alive, vibrating softly, like a hidden heartbeat beneath the ground. The van was gone. Completely. The patch of dirt where it had been parked was empty, except for tire tracks that led straight into the fog and vanished halfway. I turned on my flashlight again. Its beam caught something faint on the road, small footprints, bare, leading toward the village. They looked like a child's. And there were two sets. The humming began again. Same tune as before. Only this time, it was coming from inside the church. I didn't want to go back. But there was nowhere else to go. The forest around the village was steep and endless. The road was gone. So I followed the sound. Every step echoed against the old stones, my light dancing across cracked windows and rusted railings. The church door was still open, hanging crooked on one hinge. Inside, the radio was gone. But something new stood on the altar, a photograph. It was me, standing outside the van, taken from a distance. There was writing on the back. "You're part of the record now." My pulse thundered in my ears. I dropped the photo. It landed face up. In the picture, my reflection in the van window was smiling. But I wasn't. Something moved in the pews. I lifted the flashlight slow and shaking. Rows of figures were sitting there, perfectly still. At first, I thought they were mannequins. But their heads turned toward me one by one. Their faces were wrapped in cloth. Old bandages, yellowed with time. No eyes. No mouths. Yet I could feel them watching. One of them tilted its head, the same slow, deliberate motion I'd seen before. And then, they all began to hum. The same lullaby. Soft. Innocent. Wrong. I stumbled backward, hitting the door frame, but before I could run, one of them raised a finger to its lips. A gesture of silence. Then, in a single whisper, they all spoke together. He's listening. The air grew colder, heavy enough to choke on. My breath came out in clouds as I stumbled back from the pews. The humming stopped. All at once. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. Every heartbeat sounded like a hammer inside my skull. Then, from behind the altar, I heard the creak of wood, slow, deliberate. Something was walking out. It wasn't one of them. This one was taller, broader, wrapped in what looked like a priest's robe, but the fabric was wet, clinging to its body. Its head was bare, smooth and pale, eyes hidden behind black glass like an old gas mask. It stepped toward me, dragging one hand along the wall. Everywhere its fingers touched, the wood began to rot instantly. "Why did you come back?" it asked. Its voice wasn't human. It sounded like the radio static given form. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. The thing tilted its head, waiting for an answer. Then it pointed toward the back of the church, where a trapdoor lay half-buried under the warped floorboards. "They're waiting below," it whispered. "Finish what you started." The bandaged figures began to rise, one by one, turning toward the door. I ran before they could reach me, throwing myself outside into the mist. The fog swallowed the world again. I couldn't see more than a few feet ahead, but I knew where I was going well. The writing around it was clearer now, as if freshly carved. Do not answer the voice. It feeds on memory. It never forgets. I leaned over the rusted bars and shone my light down. There was something at the bottom, glinting faintly. It was a camera. My camera. The same one I'd been carrying. But I still had it in my bag. I blinked, confused, and when I looked up, the fog behind me moved. A silhouette stood just a few meters away, me. Every detail was perfect. Same jacket. Same cut on the arm. Same dirt on the boots. It smiled. Not my smile, wider, wrong, splitting the cheeks too far. "You shouldn't have taken it," it said in my voice. I stumbled back. The doppelganger tilted its head, just like the others had. Then, in one motion, it leapt into the fog and was gone. I looked back into the well. The camera was gone too. But now, the reflection staring up at me from the water wasn't mine. The reflection blinked. But I didn't. It tilted its head the other way, slow and deliberate, like it was studying me. Then, with a ripple, another face appeared beside it. And another. Dozens of faces, all mine, twisted in pain, whispering beneath the surface. The water began to churn. Hands, pale and shaking, reached up from the darkness, clawing at the rim of the well. I staggered back as the first one crawled out, drenched, blind, mouth open in a silent scream. Its skin looked stretched too thin, veins pulsing black. It didn't move toward me at first. It just pointed at the village behind me. Then, all at once, the bells began to ring again. The sound hit like thunder, vibrating through the ground, and every shadow in the fog turned to look my way. I ran. The houses blurred past, same cracked windows, same doors hanging open. But they weren't empty anymore. Shapes moved inside. Not walking, not crawling, more like floating, as if time had forgotten how to handle them. I reached the main road, where the sign "Welcome to O'Hara's END" lay half buried in the dirt. My car was still there. I yanked the door open, threw myself inside, and jammed the key into the ignition. Nothing. Not even a click. Then I saw it, movement in the rearview mirror. Someone was sitting in the back seat. I froze. Slowly, I turned my head. Empty. But when I looked back in the mirror, the figure was closer. "Drive," it whispered, its breath fogging the glass. The headlights flickered to life. I didn't touch the switch. The car roared forward, tires screeching as if pulled by something else. I gripped the wheel, but it wouldn't turn. The steering locked, forcing me down the narrow, cracked road leading deeper into the woods. Branches whipped against the windshield, cracking it. The radio turned on by itself, whispering. Not words, just breathing. Then, amid the static, came a voice, my voice. "You left them behind. You were supposed to stay." I slammed the brakes, but the pedal went to the floor. The car didn't slow. Ahead, through the mist, the outline of the church appeared again, but this time it was burning. Flames climbed the steeple, black smoke coiling into the sky like veins. And in the glow of that fire, I saw them, every villager, standing perfectly still, watching me arrive. They stood in complete silence, rows of lifeless faces illuminated by the fire's glow. Their eyes were empty, black pits that reflected nothing. I slammed the door open and stumbled out, coughing as the heat hit me. The air was thick with ash, and the faint smell of burnt wood and something else. Something human. The villagers began to move. Not toward me, but in a slow circle surrounding the church. Their mouths opened in unison, and from every throat came the same whisper. "Stay." The ground trembled beneath my feet. The church bell, somehow untouched by the flames, began to toll again, a deep, metallic roar that shook the bones inside me. From within the burning doorway, a figure stepped out. Tall, cloaked in black, face hidden beneath a wooden mask carved like a screaming skull. He raised a hand, and the whispering stopped. The masked figure walked through the fire like it wasn't there. His cloak never caught flame, and the heat bent around him like he owned it. When he spoke, it wasn't a voice, it was an echo, vibrating inside my skull. "You've seen what they wanted you to see. Now you must finish what you started." I stumbled back, shaking my head. "I didn't start anything. I just came here. You came back." His hand lifted higher, and suddenly, all around me, the villagers dropped to their knees. The ground cracked. Beneath the burning church, something moved, something alive, massive, dragging itself upward through the soil. A single, enormous hand, black as coal and dripping with tar, broke through the earth, clawing at the sky. The smell was unbearable, like rotting earth and blood mixed with smoke. I turned to run, but the villagers blocked my path. They weren't human anymore. Their faces melted into featureless gray masks. Their bodies twitched like puppets pulled by invisible strings. I pushed through, screaming, but every touch burned like ice. The church's firelight faded, swallowed by a growing shadow spreading across the ground. That thing beneath the village was climbing out, the same shape I'd seen in my dreams for weeks. The same whisper that had followed me since I crossed the bridge into Harrow's End. Then I saw it, carved into the bell tower's base. Do not answer when the village calls. The realization hit me too late. Every time I'd spoken aloud, every hello, every who's there, I had answered it. I had invited it in. The masked figure lowered his hand, and the world went dark. When I woke up, there was no fire, no villagers, no sound. The sky was pale gray, neither night nor day. Ash drifted through the air like snow. I was lying in the middle of the road, my car nowhere in sight. My throat burned like I'd swallowed smoke, and every breath felt like breathing through dust. I stood up slowly, scanning the horizon. The church was gone. In its place was an open pit, bottomless and black. I backed away, heart pounding, and that's when I saw the footprints. Hundreds of them, leading away from the pit and into the forest. Each one was mine. I followed them, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stop myself. My legs moved like they remembered something I didn't. Somewhere in the fog, a voice whispered, "Welcome back, stranger." The forest was different now. Every tree leaned inward, as if watching. Every branch carried strips of cloth, old prayer flags, faded with time. As I walked, the fog thickened until I couldn't see my hands. But I kept following the sound, a soft, rhythmic hum. When I finally broke through the mist, I saw an old house standing alone in a clearing. The same one from the photograph I'd found in the chapel. The same one that had haunted my dreams. The door creaked open before I touched it. Inside, dust coated everything, the furniture, the floor, even the framed pictures on the wall. I wiped one clean. It was me, smiling, standing with people I didn't recognize, the same villagers. And written beneath it, Homecoming, 1972. The floorboards groaned as I stepped deeper into the house. Something dripped from the ceiling, not water. Thick, dark, and warm when it hit my arm. Blood. It ran in a thin stream down the wallpaper, tracing the shape of veins. The hum grew louder, now clearly a woman's voice, singing in a low, mournful tone. I followed it to the basement door. Every part of me screamed not to open it. But my hand turned the handle anyway. The steps creaked as I descended into the dark. At the bottom, a single lantern burned weakly. And beside it sat a figure in a rocking chair, a woman in a tattered dress, hair falling over her face. She was humming the same lullaby I'd heard in my dreams. When she looked up, her eyes were gone. And in a voice soft and trembling, she said, "You shouldn't have come back, Daniel." The sound of my name froze me in place. No one had called me that since before I even came here. But I never told anyone my name. "Who are you?" I whispered. She smiled, a slow, broken thing that didn't reach her lips. "You know who I am." Her skin began to crack, like dried clay, flaking away to reveal something black beneath, not flesh, not bone. Something older. She stood, the chair creaking behind her. "We built this place to contain it," she said. "But you opened the gate." I shook my head. "I didn't. Every question you asked, every word you spoke, it listens. It learns your voice." The humming stopped. The house groaned, its beams bending as if something massive pressed against the walls from the outside. "Now it knows you." A deafening crack split the air as the walls began to bleed black tar. It poured from the corners, thick and pulsing like it was alive. The woman, or whatever she'd become, reached out, touching my face with a trembling hand. "Run," she said. "You can't stop it, but maybe you can make it forget." Before I could move, the tar surged up, swallowing her whole. The lantern shattered. In total darkness, something massive moved in the room, breathing slow, heavy breaths that rattled the air. I bolted up the stairs, slipping on the tar-slick steps, my hands clawing at the railing. Behind me, the sound followed, a dragging, scraping noise like something pulling itself through the earth. When I burst outside, the fog had turned black. The trees twisted like screaming faces, and the ground beneath my feet pulsed, beating like a heart. I ran until my lungs burned. Through the forest, past the pit, past the ruins that had once been the village. But no matter how far I went, the sound followed, that slow, deliberate bell toll, echoing from everywhere at once. At last, I saw the bridge, the same one I'd crossed when I arrived. It looked different now, older, covered in vines and bones. I sprinted across it, the wood cracking beneath me. Halfway there, I heard a voice whisper in my ear, "Leaving again, Daniel?" I froze, turned slowly. The villagers stood at the other end of the bridge, motionless. And among them, the masked figure watched silently, hand raised. The bridge shook violently. I ran, and as I leapt from the final plank, the bridge collapsed behind me, swallowed by the black fog. I hit the dirt road hard. When I looked back, Harrow's End was gone. The forest behind me was empty. Just wind and silence. No bells. No whispers. For the first time in what felt like years, I could hear my own breathing. I staggered toward the highway, following the faint hum of power lines until I reached the old gas station where it had all begun. Its lights were flickering again, just like before. I pushed open the door. The bell above it jingled softly, and the clerk looked up. "Same man. Same blank stare." "Rough night?" he asked. My voice cracked. "You remember me?" He frowned. "Can't say that I do. First time I've seen you here." I looked around. Everything was exactly as it had been the night I arrived. The same radio. The same static. Only the calendar was different. The date read October 29th, 1972. I stumbled back, my heart slamming against my ribs. "That's not possible." The man just smiled, too wide, too still. "Everything's possible in Harrow's End." The radio crackled behind him, a burst of static that made my ears ring. Then a voice came through my voice. Tired. Broken. "Good evening, listener. You've tuned in late tonight. Don't fall asleep just yet." I turned to the sound. The radio dial glowed red. I could hear the rest of the broadcast, word for word, the same introduction I'd recorded before coming here. The clerk vanished. The room grew cold. The radio whispered, "Stay a while, Daniel. There's still time for one more story." I ran out of the station, stumbling into the darkness of the empty road. The air shimmered, flickering between moments, night to day, fog to flame, silence to screaming. Every step I took led me back to the same point, the bridge, the pit, the burning church. It was all looping, repeating, trapping me inside the story. Then, out of the mist ahead, I saw a shape. A figure standing by the roadside, holding something. It was my recorder, the one I'd used for my midnight broadcasts. The figure stepped closer. It wore my face, and in a low voice it said, "You've been talking to them all along." I tried to speak, but the static grew louder, swallowing everything. My voice, my heartbeat, even my thoughts. The last thing I remember before it all went black was the sound of the bell. Ringing one final time. I woke to the sound of rain. Soft, gentle, like nothing had ever happened. I was sitting at my desk, microphone in front of me, the red on air sign glowing. The clock on the wall read 2:59 a.m. My hands trembled as I looked around. The studio was exactly how I'd left it, coffee cup half full, script notes scattered, the faint hum of the transmitter filling the air. I exhaled, shaking. "Just a dream," I whispered. But when I looked down, the recorder was still there, covered in dirt, its red light blinking. The tape rolled on its own, and from the speaker came a familiar voice, tired, broken, terrified. "If anyone's hearing this, don't go to Harrow's End. Please, don't go." My stomach dropped. It was my voice. I grabbed the recorder and hit stop, but it wouldn't stop. The buttons jammed. The reels spun faster and faster until the tape snapped, spilling like entrails across the table. Then the lights flickered. The hum of the transmitter deepened into a low, throbbing drone that rattled the window panes. I looked up, and through the glass, I saw the reflection of the studio. Only in the reflection, someone else was sitting in my chair. They looked up, smiled. "Your shift's over," they said. The red light above the booth door flickered. Then it changed from on air to a word I'd never seen before. "Stay." Every monitor in the studio switched on, showing static, smoke, and the shape of the church burning again. The voice returned, quiet and calm. "You've been such a loyal storyteller, Daniel. You kept them listening. You kept the village alive." The screens flashed faster, faces of the villagers, the masked man, the woman in the basement, all merging into static. I stood frozen as my reflection in the glass leaned closer, whispering through the hiss. "Now it's your turn to listen." The transmitter roared to life, and every speaker in the building screamed the same single note, the toll of the bell. The walls rippled. The floor buckled. And as the sound reached its peak, everything went white. When the silence finally returned, there was no one left in the studio. Just the mic, still recording. And faintly, from somewhere deep in the static, a voice whispered, "Good evening, listener. Welcome back to Harrow's End."